Hi guys, welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. And today it is time to continue with our discussion of the Greeks. And we're going to move into the first of the three major players for this part of the saga for season 1. And that's going to be Athens. And to talk about Athens, we need to talk about Athenian identity and where the Athenian mindset largely came from. We've talked about how the Iliad and the desire to be Achilles, sack of wines, and be the best, and this competitive nature kind of defines the Greeks. But Athens specifically owes a lot to one of its early kings, and that is Theseus. Theseus is a mythological king for us, but for them, it was history. And this all happens actually before the Trojan War. Theseus is actually the king before the king of Athens that helps Agamemnon and Menelaus in the Trojan War. But the Athenians had a saying, nothing without Theseus. So important was he to kind of the way that Athens saw the world and the Athenians saw themselves. So, without wasting any more time, let's get down to business. Let's talk about Theseus, king of Athens. Now, Theseus is the son of King Aegeus of Athens. And Aegeus has no children, he has no heirs to the throne, and so he goes to Delphi. We have not yet talked about Delphi in this, but just really quickly, Delphi is the religious center of Greece. Basically, it was a shrine to Apollo, where the Pythia, the high priestess, was there, and she would, for a donation, essentially read the future, read the entrails, or give an augury or an oracle. And so she is often sought out. Now, the problem with these prophecies is that they are almost always completely vague. Like, the spaghetti octopus flies at midnight, and they're like, oh my gosh, the spaghetti octopus, that means that I'm going to succeed in this It's all very obscure. I think by design, but who knows. So he goes to the Pythia, and the Pythia gives a stereotypically vague response. She says, do not loosen the bulging mouth of the wineskin until you reach Athens. And Aegeus is like, what? Like, I don't know what that means. And, I'm not sure I know what that means. I think I do, and I think it's gross. So, whatever. So on his way back, he stops in Troezen and hangs out with his friend, the king of Troezen, King Pythias. And it's not really on his way back because Troezen is like it's south. Like, you would get to Athens before Troezen if you were coming back from Delphi. I don't know. And he hangs out and he tells Pythias, he's like, hey, so the lady said, oh, don't open the bulging. And Pythias knows what this means, but he doesn't really tell Aegeus. Instead, he gets Aegeus super drunk. And so Aegeus, drunk on wine, Pythias is like, here, you should sleep with my daughter. And Pythias gives his daughter Aithra to Aegeus, and they sleep together, and she becomes pregnant. Now, this night, after they've both gone to sleep, while Aegeus is asleep, Athena appears to Aithra in her dream. And she tells Aithra, she's like, hey, you need to wade across to a nearby island and pour out some wine in offering to Poseidon. And so Aithra does this very thing. She doesn't ask questions. She's a good Greek, I suppose, and it's like, okay, Athena, I'll go do that. So she goes over to the nearby island, she pours out the wine for Poseidon, and Poseidon appears, and they do it. And so, because of this, Theseus is the son of both Aegeus and Poseidon, because that is how genetics works. Since both of them were with Aithra, they are both the dad. This is unfortunate for them if they went on Maury to determine paternity, because one would celebrate if he wasn't, and then guess what? You are. Sorry, boss.
You are the father!
So, while Aithra is pregnant, Aegeus is like, all right, I gotta go back to Athens because I'm the king, so I need to go back there. And Aithra stays there with her dad. But Aegeus says, okay, when you give birth to Theseus, that's what I want him named, when you give birth to him and he grows up into a strapping young lad, they always grow up into strapping young lads. When he grows up into a strapping young lad, see if he can lift this big old rock, because I'm gonna put my sword and my sandals and some other royal crap that I'll definitely recognize. I'm gonna put it under this huge old boulder. So when he is grown, have him lift that boulder and wear that stuff and come over to Athens, and I'll be able to acknowledge him as my son, and he'll be my heir. And so, kisses all around, and he leaves. So, the years pass, and as stated, Theseus grows up into a strapping young lad. And so his mom shows him to the boulder and says, oh, can you lift this? And he's like, yeah, no problem. Whoa, look at that. All right, Mom. And so he lifts it, easily and gets his dad's crap, and she's like, oh, that stuff is your dad's. Your dad is the king of Athens. You should go and see him and take your rightful place as Prince of Athens. And he's like, all right, Mom, I'm definitely gonna do that. That sounds awesome. And so his mom and his granddad, King Theseus, they're both like, so there's 2 ways to get to Athens. You should just jump on this boat and sail right over there. It's very short. But there's also an overland way that you should definitely not do because it is very dangerous. Overland will take you past these 6 entrances to the underworld, because the underworld, the Greeks believed, had there were 6 caves that like would lead down in the underworld, and that's where the rivers originated. And each one of these caves is guarded by some kind of like powerful bandit, and they kill people, and you should not do that. It's very, very dangerous. And Theseus, all Theseus hears from this is like, yes, a quest. He just sees like a yellow exclamation point above his mom's head. And so he takes that quest because he's like, danger is my middle name. Theseus, danger of Athens. And so he decides that he's gonna go the long route past the gates of the underworld, because he also knows that his cousin Hercules is very, very famous. He's tired of hearing about people talking about his cousin. He wants to do some labors of his own so that he can get that famous reputation and all the awesome crap that comes with it. So he's like, Mom, I'm gonna do these labors. There's 6 of them. It's only half as much as Herc, but maybe I can find some later and equal it out to 12. But mine will probably be more awesome. And so she's like, oh, please be careful. It's so dangerous. And his granddad's like, Theseus, this is a terrible idea. What do you know, old man? I'm going. And so he goes. And realistically, I actually really like Theseus's labors more than Hercules' labors. They're freaking ridiculous. So his first labor, the 6 labors of Theseus, the first entrance he comes to is guarded by Periphetes the club bearer. I love their names. Their names are always like what they do. So Periphetes has a big old bronze club. He's a son of Hephaestus. He has a bad leg like his dad. He has 1 eye like the Cyclops. And as passersby, go by his territory, he says,
yeah, all right, give me your stuff or I'm gonna hit you with this club and kill you.
And then they give him his stuff, and then he hits him with the club and kills him. So he's just a club-bearing murderer. And so as he's passing his first place, Epidaurus, which is in Argos, I'll throw up a map, Periphetes jumps out and says,
hey, yo, you better give me your money, I'm gonna smash you with my big old bronze club.
And Theseus, what you need to understand is Theseus is crafty, hence the Athenians. Theseus looks at this guy, and, Theseus could maybe take him in a fight, but Theseus is like, you know what, I don't think, are you sure that club is bronze? It looks like it's like painted wood. Are you really out here like fooling people? And Periphetes is like,
no, this is bronze, look at that. Do.
And he hits the ground and it makes a noise that I guess he thinks is bronze. And he's like, I don't know. I think you could probably maybe fake that. Do you mind if I hold that?
He's like, yeah, here you go, bet. It's bronze right there, but if it is, you gotta give me your money.
He's like, all right, deal. And so Periphetes hands Theseus his club. Theseus is like, oh, you know what? That is bronze. Boosh! Boosh! And just beats Periphetes to death with it. Suck it, Periphetes, you dummy. Rip. 1 down. So next, at the Isthmus of Corinth, and you're going to hear a lot about Isthmus of Corinth when we talk about history and Persian invasions. But he meets Sinus, he who bends pine trees, which is just such a fantastic name. And so Sinus is apparently from a cartoon. So what Sinus does is he's a bandit king, he jumps out at people, and he's like, hey, I need some help. I'm trying to bend these pine trees down. And he asks people for help. And as they help him bend these pine trees backwards, when they're at the bottom, he lets go and the people, like Goofy, just get thrown into the air and then they die. I don't know why people agree to do this. I don't know what reason he gives to people that he's bending the pine trees back, why this is a necessary thing that needs to occur. But people seem to have no problem being like, oh, okay, you're bending pine trees. I got it. Let's help. And so Theseus comes across the isthmus and Sinus jumps out and says, hey, I need some help bending this pine tree. And Theseus is like, okay, why? Irrelevant, just help me. It's a compulsion. And so Theseus is like, all right. And so as they're bending the pine tree, when it reaches the bottom, Sinus goes, but before he can let go, Theseus lets go and and Sinus just flies and bing, there's a Team Rocket-like glint in the sky. You know there is. So rip Sinus. And so after this, Theseus takes his first wife, which is Sinus's daughter, Perigune, or Perigone. And she gives birth to his first son, so I guess he stays there a while, or he hooks up with her and then leaves. Who knows? Theseus got places to go. Okay, so the third one is by far the lamest one. There's a place called Cromion, that's near the isthmus, and here he has to defeat the Cromionian sow, which is just a big, like, man-eating pig, which is either owned by a witch named Phaia or is the witch named Phaia. The animal ones are always the dumbest. Like, except for the Nemean lion with Hercules, but like getting the bulls or killing the pigs, or they're just dumb. It's just a big man-eating farm animal. And so he beats that easily. He just, like, I don't know, hits it with the club that he took from Periphetes. Let's say that. Rip. Moving on. Labor 3 is stupid. Labor 4, however, is my favorite by a long shot. So, near Megara, which is near the sea, Megara has a port nearby, there's a bandit king named Skyron the Cliff Pusher. And if you don't know what happens here, what he does, he jumps out and he takes people up to the top of the cliff and he says, hey, oh man, can you wash my feet for me? Or to make it slightly less weird, can you tie my shoes? Like, I don't understand. Look, don't pull on the threads. Any kind of Greek mythology, don't pull on the threads because the whole sweater comes unraveled. So he takes people up to the top of the cliff and he's like, whoa, wash my feet, or, you know, tie my shoes. And people are just like, oh, okay. And so they bend down to tie his shoes or wash his feet, and he, boom, off the cliff. And Skyron, Skyron the Cliff Pusher. He always has to say this because that's his catchphrase. Oh! And he shoves them and wah! They fall off the cliff and get eaten by this giant, I guess, dragon turtle, that just is Skyron's buddy, I guess, that hangs out at the bottom of the cliff waiting for Skyron to Skyron the Cliff Pusher people off the edge. Awesome. And so as Theseus passes Megara, Skyron jumps out and says, bah, come with me. Up, let me show you a glorious view of the cliff. And Theseus is like, you know what, I've been walking a while, I'd love to see a glorious view of a cliff. And so he goes up there and Skyron's like, oh, my feet, I stepped in mud. And Theseus is like, I watched you literally jump off the path into that mud puddle. Like, you got your feet dirty on purpose. No, I did not. Please, will you help me wash my feet? And Theseus is like, okay. And so Theseus bends down to wash Skyron's feet. And as Skyron goes to Skyron the Cliff Pusher, Theseus, whoa, back body drops him. Oh,
momentary lapse in judgment.
Because Theseus is a trained wrestler. And, no, Skyron the Cliff pushed. And he falls. And his dragon turtle buddy eats him. Rip Skyron. And Theseus, takes his spoils and moves on. Next, Labor 5, we come across Eleusis, home of the Eleusinian mysteries that will cause so many problems during the Peloponnesian War. And here we have, oh yeah, Circeon the Wrestling King. Oh yeah.
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
So Circeon is a son of Poseidon, and he jumps out at people and demands that they wrestle him. And if they win, then they get his kingdom, and if they lose, they get murdered. And guys, you would be shocked to know how often someone jumps out at a traveler and demands to be wrestled, and that is how disputes are solved. There is so much impromptu wrestling in Greek mythology. It was way more than I had anticipated when first starting teaching. And so Theseus is coming by and Circe's like, oh yeah, brother, you can't pass here, oh yeah.
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
Circeon champion, and there ain't nothing that WWF President Jack Tunney's gonna do about it.
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
And so Theseus is like, I don't think you understand that I am, I'm kind of a big deal. I'm the international cruiserweight champion. And Circeon's like, oh, ain't no way. And so they wrestle, and Theseus actually wins this on skill. He lifts Circeon up and boom! Like suplexes his head into some rocks.
The women, the whole party is sparkling.
Cercion's head like busts open. Theseus takes his belt and is like, "Oh yeah, brother, now I'm the wrestling king."
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
And then he ends up hooking up with Cercion's daughters. And also, fun fact, Theseus, with this match with Cercion, actually invents the sport of wrestling. So, that's true.
True story.
He was actually the first CEO and chairman of the WWF prior to Vince McMahon.
True story.
And then on the last stretch to Athens, we get to the final bandit, which is Procrustes, the Stretcher. What a gross name, Procrustes. So Procrustes is another son of Poseidon, who maybe he has an inn, I don't know, but he has a bed. And I like to just imagine it's a bed on the side of the road that he offers to weary travelers. And apparently, travelers have no problem being like, "Oh, a road mattress. Sure." I don't know if Procrustes like found this in a dumpster and just like carts it with him. He's not really like a bandit king. He's just some crazy beggar. But Procrustes is like, "Here, you should sleep in my bed here. Weary traveler, lay your head down." And travelers are like, "Oh, okay." And so once they're laid down, he forces them to fit the bed. So what does this mean? If they're too short for the bed, he stretches their limbs, and this is where he gets his name, Procrustes the Stretcher. He stretches their limbs to meet the ends of the bed. If they're too big for the bed, then chop, chop, he cuts off their feet and their head, and now their body fits on the bed. Very clean. And I don't know how it gets the blood stains out of the freaking bed, but whatever. So Theseus is walking by, and Procrustes is like, "Ooh, weary traveler, would you like to lay your head to rest on this nice bed?" And he's like, "You know what? I'm the future king of Athens, so I think I should have better accommodations." He's like, "Oh, you're a king, you say? You won't believe what I have in store for you. To your exact specifications, it is a king-size bed." And Theseus is like, "Oh, really?" And he's like, "Yes." And he's like, "I think the bed's actually going to be too small for me, so, I think I'm going to pass. I don't think someone like me can fit on this." He's like, "No, you can." It's like, "Really? It looks really small." "No, watch." And so Procrustes gets on the bed to show him how a person could fit on it, and Theseus, cuts off his head, cuts off his feet, rip Procrustes the Stretcher, and Theseus moves on. And so, after those labors, Theseus finally arrives in Athens to claim his birthright. So guys, let's stop it here as Theseus gets to Athens, and this is the second half of his story. Our strapping young lad, our hero, has made it to Athens to confront his father and, take up his line in the throne. Where's the Minotaur, you ask? Because that's, what most people know about Theseus. He's in part 2. So, guys, hopefully you enjoyed this. If you didn't know about the 6 labors of Theseus, I hope you really enjoyed them. I love the labors of Theseus, especially Skyron the Cliff Pusher and, "Oh yes, Cercion the Wrestling King." Greek mythology is so ridiculous at times. Anyway, guys, that is it for me for today. I will be back next time with part 2 of Theseus, King of Athens. As always, information about my Patreon and Discord is down in the description, and I'll see you next time, guys.
The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.